Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations.
Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Alex Key, good to see you.
Good to see you, Carl. Thank you for having me.
It's been a while. I guess probably a year and a half or so.
Probably.
You were shorter then? No, it's not that long ago, though,
My
right?
hair was probably shorter.
Yeah, it probably was. Tell people who you are and what you do.
My name's Alex Key. I'm a country singer from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, born and raised, and proud to be. And we've been doing it professionally for 4 years or so, and
wow.
We've been very blessed, and blessed to come from such a wonderful area.
Great, great. Not everybody has heard you sing before, but a lot of people have.
Sure.
So when you say you've been in it for 4 years, that's professionally, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So you were playing the guitar and singing. How early did that start?
Well, I've sung for many years before I was decent at it.
Right.
I sung, but it wasn't good. And then around the age of 11, I broke my arm and taught myself to play guitar. And had an old Peavey, and it was just laying there, and I could move my wrist, but I couldn't move my humerus because
right.
I broke my humerus, and it
nothing
wasn't
funny about
nothing
that.
Funny.
Right.
We'll add a sound effect later, but. So I pick up this old Peavey and I start playing, and I, teach myself. I taught myself how to play the solo to "November Rain" by Guns N' Roses before I ever taught myself a G chord.
Wow.
And then somewhere along the line, I was like, man, I should learn to structure a chord, And so then my mom taught me how to play the drums, and I taught
all of this with a broken arm.
No, this was after. This was like a year later.
Arm? Okay.
Now that I had functioned back in my arm again, I could play the drums. So she taught me how to play that, and I've taught myself how to play multiple instruments along the way as well. And, somewhere around age 21, 22, I decided I wanted to be a country singer, and I knew I was always drawn to classic country music. Mama raised me on the 90s, 80s, and 90s country, right. and I knew that's where my heart lied, and I knew I wanted to do music professionally, and my voice doesn't lend itself too well to heavy metal, so
right.
I figured country.
It was that broken arm syndrome you got there, right? Messed your vocal cords up too.
But country was just where my heart lied, and
nice.
I knew I wanted to do it, and I wanted to be a part of that world, and so we started. My mom said she had experience in management, and she said, "Well, I'm going to manage you." And she said, "We'll make it happen." And so that's kind of where it all began.
I remember a few years ago seeing you on stage. Maybe the first time was in Wilkesboro.
Sure.
Was it? Was that
sure,
it?
I believe it was. Yeah.
You were playing on the new stage over there.
Yeah.
And
probably for a farmer's market when they still had them down there.
Something. Then and then shortly after that, we had you in for the first time. And,
sure, absolutely.
And you revealed something that I thought was fascinating. I still do to this day. Now I don't know if it's evolved since your arm's better, but you were talking about music writing.
Yeah.
And that process that you go through,
sure.
which I found was fascinating because you really weren't trained in music, you said, and you just played.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how do you orchestrate? How do you get the band together? And it was interesting what you said.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell folks about how that works, and has it evolved over the past few years, or is it still the same?
Not really. If you're referring to the songwriting process,
right?
Basically,
and the music process,
sure.
the music writing process.
Sure. My process basically is, I get labeled often as the guy that's like bringing 90s country music back and stuff like that, and I don't really. It's not necessarily. I'm not capitalizing on that sound. That's just, like I said, that's what I was raised on. That's what I consider country music, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I write a song, I sit down and I think about, number one, country always tells a story. It's got to tell a story. This mindless, some of this new stuff that's mindless, it's fun to listen to, but it's not thought-provoking, and I always want to be thought-provoking in some way. So I'll sit down and I'll think of a story. A lot of stories are true. A lot of stories are, vicarious through things I've heard, experiences I've heard from other people. And a lot of times I'll have a movie playing in my head as I write the song, and that helps the process. I think about it in a cinematic form. If this were a movie, how could I write this in the way that someone's mind could, picture it along with me? And so that helps me write the song, and it also helps when it comes to the music video process. And, that way you do the song, then I usually almost always am writing the music alongside it with the guitar.
But you're writing in your head, though, right?
Correct.
You're not writing it on paper.
I don't write on paper.
The scoring is what I was getting to. It was like, I was like, how do you do that? And then how do you do liner notes? How do you do all those things? And you're like, no, don't do that.
I don't do any of that.
Do it all in your head, which is amazing.
Well, some people say that it is, but I think it's probably a little more primitive than it sounds, because you start with this. A lot of times I'll start with the chorus, all right, and I'll write a line to the chorus, and then I'll think about another one. And by the time you've got to the end of the chorus, you've sung through it 100 times. Mm-hmm. You don't want to write it down at that point. You don't even want to think about it anymore. Okay, let's move on to something else. So by the time you've written this song, you've sung through it over and over and over and over, building it, and you would have to try really to forget it. At that point. So I don't write things down.
Yeah, that's your way.
That's just my way.
All right, great. One of the things that we relate to in that storytelling process is we've followed you along the years, and the fact that you are making your own music videos.
Sure.
Oftentimes, you're not only starring as one character, but multiple characters, which I thought was, look at how clever that is, right? So you're expressing yourself in all these different ways. I mean, does that feed you, and not just singing a song, but bringing not only a piece of it, but all of it to life?
Absolutely. It's that kind of started with the TikTok and Facebook and Instagram Reels and stuff like that. It's, especially during COVID, when I probably never would have jumped on TikTok had it not been for COVID. I had nothing else to do aside from my normal daily, chores and stuff and duties. But we were shut down. We weren't traveling anymore, and I jumped on TikTok. And the thing about TikTok and Instagram Reels and all this stuff, you have to entertain people. Right. Unfortunately, we live in a society where you can no longer just put out a good song and tons of people hear it, and it just whatever. You can't send it to the radio and they play blah blah blah. You have to entertain people. Keep them. If I jump on there and I say, "Hey guys, listen to my new song. It's great. You're gonna love it." Most people are going to scroll away before it ever gets to the song, So you got to do something to engage people and keep them entertained, make them laugh a little, and and I enjoy doing that. I like people making laugh. Mm-hmm. I like to make people laugh as well, and so it's all part of that entertainer mindset. And so I like to do that kind of stuff and build up to the song, kind of tell a little story, And a lot of times, like you say, I'll be the same character playing, different parts.
Has that been beneficial for you on your stage work as well?
Sure. Did y'all boys see the CMA Awards the other night? Yeah, I did. Country music is dying, man. It's all pop, rock, or rap, I just want to hear something with pedal steel and no snap tracks. My new song's pretty country, so. And a little bit of a story. Something to make you think. Yeah, Daddy, like Walker Hayes music. Hey, Debbie, good call letting him sit at the adult table. I just wish someone would come back with that, like George Strait, Alan Jackson, 90s country sound, Yeah, my new song's kind of got that sound. If only someone would bring back that sound, I don't think it'd ever sell. How about y'all boys shut up for a second and let me sing you my new song? You might like it. And pass me a glass of whiskey. This is gonna be good.
There's a house on Maple Street where the neighbors stop and stare. They all say that it's haunted and a crazy man lives there. It's true.
I can't imagine that it wouldn't have been just incredibly empowering to you, because you were teaching yourself how to make things.
Sure.
You got an idea, and you've got to create it. You've got to film it. You're producing. You're writing, producing. Absolutely. Wherever you're writing, in your head or on paper, it doesn't matter. But you're making this thing happen.
Yeah.
And it's all theater. right?
It is, and it's a curse at times because it is. You know,
Right,
you go to
course.
certain venues and stuff, and you are watching. A lot of times, sometimes maybe they'll have lights going, and you'll in your mind you'll be saying that light's not in the right place.
Right.
And so you're constantly thinking about these things, and we do like you say, we do all our own music videos. It's all in house. If I'm what I always say is if I'm in the camera, like if I'm in the frame, then I'm not filming. Mama will be filming.
Right.
If I'm not in the frame, I'll be filming. Like if it's a band shot or something like that, I'll take over and run the camera for a little while, and then we bring it all back, do the editing, and whatnot, and we put it out there. And it's a blessing that we've got the knowledge and the know-how to do that, because oftentimes it's hard to rely on. Let's say 2 weeks from now, I want to put a music video out. Well, 2 weeks from now, you'll be lucky if you can find a team to
Right.
even start the production process,
Right.
much less have the video out in 2 weeks. So
Right.
having that know-how it's a big help.
It pushes you to think bigger, broader, and I think it also takes away a lot of the fear, doesn't it?
It does.
Because you can do it.
Absolutely.
You can put on a show.
Sure.
Well, I knew that you were continuing to evolve because as you walk into the studio today, the first thing you start doing is talking about, I've got that set of lights. and now back in this room, we have 4 cameras and a lot of lights. And you and Tim, of course, are starting to tech talk before, not TikTok, but tech talk.
But tech talk, yes.
Talk,
Yes.
right?
Oh, my
Talking
goodness.
About the lights.
Well, it's so funny, like you say, you get to go to these places, and like here today, me and him were getting to have a conversation about the tech, and when we go to venues and stuff, I'll talk to the guy running the camera or the soundboard and stuff like that, and I'll know how to talk with these guys, how to live in their world, because I do it too. Like when I drive the bus, I always drive the bus, but when we get to venues, most of your big country artists, they stay on the bus. You never see them. Me myself, I get out of the bus and I go talk to the other bus drivers. We have it. So it's really cool to be.
So you're not talking to the entertainers. You're talking to the other bus drivers.
I'd rather talk to the bus drivers.
There you go.
They got more stories to tell. They see more from the front windshield.
Well, there's certainly the show wouldn't happen if they weren't there, would it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right. That's fantastic. All right. Let's talk about a bit about your family and what it's like working with your mom. She's your manager and going through this process of family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about family and the importance of family. Yeah. And I think that's true, but we have so many things that separate us and pull us in all these different directions. Sure. So there's a certain amount of commitment that it takes to figure out how to keep family together, right?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to make the effort. You always have to make the effort because a lot of and whatever anybody wants to do is fine with them. We live in a generation where and we live in a small town where a lot of times kids will go off to college.
Right.
Well, there's more to do in this town. I think I'll stick around. Stick around here. They'll go off to a big college town. They'll stay there, and that's fine. But it unfortunately with that you don't get to be around your family as much, and so I'm very blessed to have a career, and that's another thing. Sometimes you have to stay in another town where there's more career opportunity. Maybe you went to school for this, and there's not a position here in Wilkes available for that, so you've got to make the living somewhere else. And I understand that, and we're very blessed and fortunate to have a career that with social media and things like that, we can stay right here. We don't have to live in Nashville or anywhere else, and so we get to stay where our family is, and we're a very close family anyway. We're just a very tight-knit family, and we're blessed to have that, and I'm blessed to have that support. And, and we've just got even closer. Anytime tragedy happens, you pull closer.
You're close.
And, we lost my grandma back in June of last year, and then we lost my uncle a month later in July. And so, in times like that, you pull together anyway. So somehow this incredibly close family has just got even closer. And we have a small family, and we're all just very, we love each other. We don't care to show that we love each other, and we're proud of that bond.
You talk about Wilkes County and, how people will, some people stay, some people go off, some people stay off, and they come back. But as far as the music community is concerned, there's just a tremendous amount of music talent in Wilkes County, and, there's a lot of history of good music families from this area.
Absolutely.
So now you're part of that. You know, you started young, and now you're kind of going through that journey.
Sure.
And you've got a big bus with your picture on the side of it. You can people know who you are.
Absolutely.
They probably some of them knew who you were before then, but now
I can find it in the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah, so, that's right. You can. So when you think about this community, and I know you've spent time in Nashville, but this is your home.
It is.
But when you're on the road and people ask you where you're from and you talk about Wilkes, how often do people bring up a question about, Doc Watson or some of the other great session musicians that live in Wilkes County?
If they are a musician, Doc's name is known throughout music lovers, millions of music lovers. But where he's from is not necessarily known by a lot of people.
Right.
So if you're a musician and you mention Wilkes County to them, very often they bring out Doc Watson, and so he's often talked about in the music community, and I'm being proud of where I come from. I do talk about the history here, and I talk about Doc, and I talk about things like the Speedway and stuff like that. So if they're not familiar with Wilkes, those are kind of like what I pull out of the pocket. I'm like, okay, you've never heard of Wilkes? Well, let me tell you who and what comes from here, and so we're very proud of that, and it's cool to. People say, well, I don't know where Wilkes is. And then you start bringing out people like Doc and these names and stuff. I'm like, oh, wow.
Sure.
That's amazing that you get to come from such a, a rich area and a rich historical area. It's very cool.
It is special that we get to enjoy that environment because it's a little bit different, right? It's a different type of an environment when we're in communities that are so busy. And as I've traveled around the Carolinas and the East Coast, I love our big cities, but I really love our smaller communities.
Absolutely.
In a different type of a way, because we can do what we're doing now, which is to sit and have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Or pick up the phone and call each other and we take a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or 20 minutes, whatever it takes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a different way of thinking, isn't it?
It is. And it's like you say, you do find that a whole lot more in communities like ours where, it's everybody truly, if you don't know each other, you feel like you do. And like me and you, we've known each other for a long time, and like I say, you'll call me sometimes, I'll call you, whatever, just catch up and be nothing more than that. We're just today this is business. We're sitting down having a conversation. This is part of a series, but we're friends.
Right.
And that's wonderful. Most places it's just business. It's just what are we doing today, and then we won't talk again until business comes along again. And that's not our case. And that's a beautiful thing, a beautiful part of Wilkes County.
I think you're right, because you shared how we interact, but there's so many other people and so many other opportunities that we have here to do that.
Sure.
It's just a lot. I mean, I was at lunch today and Arnold Langford was there. Langford.
Yeah.
Was there. Langford. He was there at lunch. People here know who he is.
Sure.
And I said, Arnold, I'll call you tomorrow. We'll set up a time to have you come in. Why? Wow, my gosh, because he has so much history in the area, and the poultry industry, and all those great old stories.
Absolutely.
We're going to sit and talk about that.
Yeah.
And we can do that because he's here in Wilkes County, and there's so many others. I mean, we're doing a lot of these conversations just so people can get to know each other.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something good about that, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Is that the type of thing you'd write a song about?
I think that'd be a great thing to write a song about. Absolutely.
I'm not asking you to. I'm just wondering. You know what? I was handed this book earlier, and I turned it over to page. Hold on a minute. Oh, page 33.
Okay.
Page 33. And there it is. Alex Key. Outdated.
That's me.
Wait a minute.
All outdated.
But this is brand new, right? This is a brand new magazine.
Brand new. I think it's the
Brand
June
new,
copy,
June
maybe.
2024, front cover, right?
It's
That's
Carly
not-
Pierce, yeah.
that's not you.
She's
That's
much
not-
prettier than I am,
Yeah,
so that's why I
it.
didn't get the cover.
But there you are, right there, right on your spread. So this is happening now, right? In country music.
Sure.
I remember a few years ago, you wrote a song that it talked about people not loving country music in
Sure.
Nashville or wherever it was.
Yeah.
It was something to that effect.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the name of it, but I was
Yeah.
like, I listened to it and I was like, oh, listen to that. That I was entertained by it. So
Sure.
mission accomplished. But now you're showing up and nice interviews. You're in magazines now,
Sure.
in magazines around country music. Talk about that and what that means to you.
It means a lot. Like I said, there was a time not so long ago when doing the 90s or, early 2000s, late 80s, country music was, I don't want to say it was not cool, but it just really wasn't what people were listening to. And I think the timing was not right. I think the timing it was much like we talked about when we did the Speedway interview. There's a time of separation that history takes before it starts to repeat itself.
Right.
You have to be removed from something for long enough to truly start to miss it. We're in a point now where you've got 16 and 17-year-olds that have never heard the pedal steel guitar. That they were born in, let's see, it's 2024. If they were born in 2008, they were born in the height of Jason Aldean and Luke Bryan, and which are fantastic guys. I love them, but it's not the same country music that I was raised on. And so if that's what they know, and then all of a sudden one day they hear this crying, brassy sounding instrument, very airy, like, what's that noise? And it's the pedal steel guitar, and fiddle's starting to come back into country music and stuff. And it's nothing new to me. It's what I've been, doing for the last 4 years. And it's a blessing to have people embracing that and the industry starting to embrace that. The other side of that is there is a capitalization on it. Much like anything, some people that don't necessarily care about the authenticity or truly reviving those instruments and the traditionalism of country music see a dollar to be made. And so they see an opportunity where, there's a craze going around this right now. 90s country is huge. Let's throw out everything we can, throw a little 90s reference in there and a pedal steel lick and a fiddle, and we got a banging 90s style country song. And I think that side of it, I frown on that. I understand capitalization is important. You got to make your money, but at the same time, I think authenticity, especially in the country music world, is really important.
Talk about that authenticity that you're speaking of, because some people will hear that and will say, well, wait a minute, Alex. If somebody does a song and they wrote it and they recorded it, that's authentic to them.
Sure.
But you're talking about something a little deeper there, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about that.
What
does that mean?
I think it all comes down to, what did you write the song for? Did you write the song to sell records? Did you write it to make millions of dollars? Did you write it to ride the wave of an existing trend? Or did you write it because it's what you enjoy and it's what you put your heart and soul into? And when you do that, there's going to be listeners, people that also feel the same way. And I don't think it's right to say that's wrong. What they're doing is wrong. Like I said, the music business is very much a business. And I think there's two sides of it. I think you can be in both worlds, which we are. We're in both worlds. We are a business. We have to maintain a business. We can't just, if I put out every single song I ever wrote just because I wrote it, well, there's a lot of them you wouldn't want to hear, a lot of them, because, there is a certain, you do have to fit a certain mold. And so certain songs lean themselves better to being commercial than other songs do. And I think you have to keep that in mind. But there are some people that simply just care about that. Is the song commercial?
Sure.
Will it sell? Will it make millions of dollars? And if so, let's cut it.
Right. Well, it wouldn't be bad if you had a few of those.
Well, I sure wouldn't turn down the millions,
That's right. I think I understand what you're saying. So clearly you are demonstrating your passion for music that you like to sing.
Yeah.
And when I look at your band, let's talk about them for a minute, because you've got...
Do we have to?
I think it's important, right? I think they're an interesting group of guys.
They are.
And I look at them and I'm like, you kind of need that type of a look to produce a soulful sound, don't you?
You do. You do.
I mean, because part of them are older than you. All of them,
except we've got a guy that's playing keys with us now,
Right.
Charles. He's my age, but so we're kind of the spring chickens, really.
Right.
And but yeah, the rest of the guys are double our age.
There's something to be said with age and a soulfulness,
Yeah.
right?
There is.
When you talk about the steel guitar, and
Sure.
Recently the Resonator, the Dobro convention was in Wilkes County. They come
Absolutely.
every year.
Yeah.
Frank Poindexter sat right there, and Frank's been playing. He's in his 70s now, and he's been playing all over the country and around the world. And when you listen to that music, there is nothing else that sounds like that.
It's beautiful. I love it.
And the history of that instrument is amazing. So when you're putting that, to me, it's kind of like you're stacking the deck in your favor, right?
Sure.
Because you can't help but to hit a little soulful feeling inside when you hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, my band
Was that why you did it?
Was that why I chose that band?
Well no, to put that sound in your music.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think so. I think at its purest point, I think my heart that's the music I wanted to make.
Okay.
At its purest point, that was there's a soulful aspect because that's where my heart lied. And I love the sound of pedal steel. Sometimes there's licks in a song with a pedal steel that'll just bring a tear to my eye, literally.
Right.
And you don't know why. And same with fiddle and stuff like that. So those truly mean a lot to me. And, with living, if you were to live in Nashville, you have a pool of musicians to choose from. And a lot of them are young guys because that's where, if you want to be a musician, that's where most young guys move. Around here, it's harder. A lot of times your musicians are also working a 40-hour-a-week job. They don't have necessarily the freedom or the availability to go off and tour and stuff like that. So it's, and also there is a somewhat of a professionalism that obviously comes with age. I know that most 28-year-olds, me and Charles, we're level-headed, but a lot of 28-year-olds, there's another side of the traveling music world that they like, and so having these guys be older and more mature, and I know they're a lot more mature than I am, but having that aspect of the professionalism and the years of experience is fantastic. A lot of them some of them are retired. Mm-hmm. And so they have the freedom, and they just absolutely love doing it. And I love my band, and I think we're all proud of the sound we're keeping out there.
Mm. So is it a little more special now after you're on the road and you're doing your gigs all over the country, or primarily on the East Coast, right?
Mostly, yeah. Right. We're starting to move out to the Midwest some. Yeah.
All right, so you're on the road, you're doing that, but there's something to do back home.
Sure.
You're on the calendar to be at an event in town, and is it a little sweeter now because you're not only playing home, where this is home,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But it's after being on the road, and I guess all your band members are from this area too, right?
They are, yeah, or at least within an hour either way.
So is there a little extra sweetness to it being here?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like, and I think any artist will pretty much tell you the same thing. There's nothing like coming and playing at home. And a lot of times the artist doesn't still live at home. Mm-hmm. So what's unique in our case is most of our shows do not take place here. They take place somewhere else, and we'll have 2 or 3 big shows a year here. And these are the people that are coming to the show are the people that I often see at Walmart, on Wednesday evening or out eating, whatever. And so it's a really unique case because these people have truly embraced what we do. They support what we do. They come to the shows. They make the effort to stand in line for hours, which is just, I wouldn't stand in line for 3 hours to meet me. I'll tell you that. But I mean, just the people here are unlike people anywhere else. We go a lot of places, and I love being from here, and I love having such a great community to come home and play to, and having their support. When
you're on the road and you're going on stage, do you tell folks where you're from?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, one of the.
What's the thing you say about Wilkes County?
I always say, and it's kind of funny, but I always say, we're from a little town called Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And, raised, and usually I do this before we play We Want You Back. That was the Speedway song.
Right.
And, raise your hand if you've ever heard of Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and you'll get, maybe 10, 15% of them. The closer you get back to this area, of course, the more. But like go up Ohio or somewhere like that, get a few. And who's heard Doc Watson?
Sure.
Who's heard of North Wilkesboro Speedway? Who drinks moonshine? And so
Right.
go through and tell them, we're moonshine capital of the world and stuff like that. And I tell them, especially when we go to a great community that reminds me of being home. We'll play a lot of places where you can just tell they have a very similar bond. And I'll always thank them for bringing us into their community and tell them, it's good to see there's other communities out there that are like mine and as embracing as mine is.
Do they respond similarly? The places that you go and you're like, oh, this feels like home. Do you find the response that you get there is very similar to what you get at home?
Absolutely. We played a show up in Cameron, West Virginia. And now we think we live in a small town.
Right.
Cameron, West Virginia is
Right.
small.
Right.
I mean, it's at the top of a mountain. There's not, you don't have a Walmart. There's a Dollar General. But you don't have a Walmart. You don't have the drugstores to go to, CVS and stuff like that. You don't have a lot of the things that we take for granted. We say we live in a small town, but you go up to this area and it's truly a small town, and 800 or 900 people.
Wow.
And you go up there to this community, everybody truly knows everybody. I mean, they literally all know each other. And so if you go up there and you're not well perceived or welcomed, they're all gonna, you know what I'm saying?
They're all against you.
They're all against you. And so we did this show up in Cameron.
Right.
And man, I'm telling you, these were the most amazing people. We actually talked to the guy that booked that show before we came in here today, and he was talking about how much they loved us.
Nice.
And we sat and talked and cried with people. There was people there that had gone through hardship, and they expressed that my music had helped them. And we laughed together. We were very one-on-one. Stayed for many hours, spent the night there, and just sat with this community and talked. And they were so loving and embracing. And it's shows like that and communities like that make you feel at home. And those are the ones that you leave with. You always want to leave with a feel good. Any show you want to leave with a feel good feeling. But that's one of those that truly I know it sounds cheesy, but it warms your heart. And
right.
That's a similar feeling to playing here in Wilkes County.
Nice. So when you find a piece of home in other places, I can't help but to imagine that lets you know that, we may have rough minutes every now and
Sure.
then, but it's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's great. We'll end with this on We Want You Back, and that song was extremely popular. I imagine it still is, right?
Sure.
Country music, the steel guitar, $5 bill to fill up your car. That part of history, folks like me, we want you back. Bottles of Coke made from glass, NASCARs are running those old short tracks like my hometown, North Wilkesboro Speedway. After church on Sunday, and we want you back. Yeah.
So when you're out and you share that song, do you tell that story with it?
I always tell that story. Yeah, as the years progress, we move into we shift focus. Of course,
Sure.
we that year was and the following year was consumed with the track and that song and stuff like that. And you do have to move on. You have to shift focus to like with Outdated, the new album. Start really pushing those songs and stuff like that. But it's amazing still when you go to these shows, you'll be in the middle of talking about a new song or whatever, and someone, play We Want You Back, you know.
Right.
And so then we'll go into the spiel, and we'll always tell the story and stuff, and we always keep it in our set. And it was very well received, and especially amongst the crossover between the NASCAR and the country music community. And so it's been a blessing, and that song's done a lot for us.
Nice. So let's wrap things up with your newest song you're out promoting. One of the reasons that you're in this, or maybe the reason, right?
It's
Who
definitely
did this?
one of
Did Mom get you in this?
No. I think that same magazine actually, and now Mama May reached out to him the first time around.
Right.
But these people have followed the career. Duncan Warwick is the editor's name, and he's followed the career, and we had a conversation much like this about a month ago, and I would consider him a friend as well as I think he's a fan of what we're doing, and so they were kind enough to put us in this year and or this June issue, and that's a blessing to have that kind of support from media, you know.
So the song, tell us about the song.
The song Outdated. Yeah. So the Outdated song was just kind of there was a comment come across social media one time, and it said something about, you know, again, doing that more classic sounding country. Most of the comments are good. You know, most people are in favor of bringing back that sound. But every once in a while, you get a guy that's on there like, you know, man, this is old, this is outdated. You know, music's got to progress, whatever, and that's fine. And so someone did call it outdated, and I thought, well, it'd be cool to write a song about how, yeah, I'm outdated. You know, we live in Wilkes County. We don't like what the cities are doing. You know, we yes, life has to progress, and you do have to evolve to a degree, but we also here, especially in these smaller towns, we like living a certain way. You know, we don't necessarily want a charging station at every corner for an electric car. You know, we still like our gas-powered vehicles and stuff like that. You know, we like our country music. And so I wrote this song, Outdated, about how, yes, I am outdated. I live a little different than some people do, but I like that, you know.
I'm a little outdated, a little old school, a little out of style. Yeah, I guess I ain't cool. Call me old-fashioned, set in my ways, stuck in the past. Yeah, it's safe to say by now I ain't changing. You can blame it on my raising. I am what I am, and all what I'm saying is I kinda like being outdated.
And we're getting ready to release a music video or a kind of a visualizer, lyric video around it, and you'll see me driving around Wilkes County in it. So
In an outdated car.
In an outdated car. An outdated truck, actually. The same truck that's on the cover there. Yeah. That's Pawpaw's old C10.
Well, I think the beauty of that story is that we do like that. When we say outdated, it's just something we've been doing for a while. And we like that. It feels good. We also like going out on the road, but we really like coming home.
Love coming home.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Yes,
all right. Alex, great talking to you again.
Always a pleasure, man.
Congratulations on the new song. You're doing great. Your manager's doing a great job keeping everything in the road, right?
She does a great job. Keeps me out of trouble. Keeps me honest.
So. All right. Well, that's a good thing. Well, say hi to the band members. We'll send something, a little Metamucil along.
Well, they need it. You know. So.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Gary. That's okay. All right. Well, what's a little country song about if you don't stir things up, right?
Go ahead. Stir it on up. Yeah.
All right. That's great. Thanks, Alex. Good to see you.
Carl. Always a pleasure.
Her little seven, and she left here with me when her and that new guy hit the road. Everything must go. Everything must go.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.
2 times. Don't think so.
No.
Okay.
No.
I get it.
Not going to do it today. Sorry.